All right, welcome back to another installment of my Halloween Hidden Gems, the limited series where I try to surface a few spooky movies that I really enjoy that I think fall into the obscure category. And the movie of focus for this episode is 2009's House of the Devil.
Talk to me, Lord. Talk to me.
Directed by Ty West. This is one of the first movies I can remember watching that went for that VHS, 1980s look. And I think it's even to this day now, it executes on that better than most movies that try to pull off the same aesthetic. The movie itself, in a lot of ways, feels like it's a love letter to the big horror movies of the 1980s. There's inspiration taken from things like Halloween and The Shining, certainly with a lot of like the tracking shots, and you even get some like vintage long zoom shots as well. But essentially, the movie follows a college student in 1985 by the name of Samantha Hughes, who is very akin to a Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode in the first Halloween movie. She's played by Jocelyn Donahue, who I think gives an incredibly grounded and believable performance as this college student. She's someone who's very easy to root for. She's very good natured and honest. And the film does a nice job contrasting her with her roommate in the early goings of the movie. Her roommate Megan is a bit more brash and she's a little more scandalous. She sleeps around and she's a little more dishonest. And you can see that the two of them are kind of like that yin and yang, where Megan kind of always pushes Samantha and maybe gets her to come out of her shell a little bit. And then Samantha is kind of like that balance as well for Megan. But the plot of the movie is that Samantha is she's in college and she is strapped for cash. She's looking to move off campus into her own apartment and she needs the money. And she goes to, I think it's like the career center at her college, and she finds one of those good old fashioned pieces of paper where you rip off the phone number and it's an advertisement for a babysitting job. And she goes home and she calls the number, and it's this older man, and he explains that, he and his wife are looking to go out this coming weekend because there's this big lunar eclipse event that he and his wife are very keen to go see. And that's something that is recurrent throughout the film, is they'll keep cutting to news broadcasts talking about tonight's eclipse and when you can catch it, and they kind of just keep hitting that over the head. Oh, there's this eclipse coming. There's this eclipse coming. So she calls the guy and gets the okay to do this babysitting job, and she has to have her friend Megan, who has the car, drive her out to the house. And it's quickly apparent that things are a little sketchy right off the rip, because this house is set, not in a neighborhood. This thing is back in like a multi-acre wooded property, and it's this big Victorian manor style home. Very quintessential horror, kind of creepy. And her friend Megan go into the house, where she meets Mr. and Mrs. Ullman, who are a fairly older couple, I think in their late 60s, I would guess. And Mr. Ullman quickly separates Samantha from Megan just to kind of give her his honest opinion. And he says, "Hey, I wasn't very upright over the phone. We have a child, but our son is grown. You're actually here to take care of my wife's mother. But the good news is that her mother will keep to herself. She'll be up in her bedroom. You probably won't even see her. You just need to basically hang out here for a couple of hours while we go to this party to view the eclipse. And, here's a number. You can order pizza. Just hang out and just be here. And understandably, Samantha is pretty turned off and alarmed and is not into the subterfuge, and why wasn't he honest from the get-go. And he kind of just keeps hammering, whatever, I was going to pay you $300, I'll give you $400. And she's like, no, I don't feel comfortable anymore. And he's like, I'll give you $500. And he just keeps ratcheting up the money over and over and over. And ultimately she agrees. And then she goes outside with her friend Megan because Megan needs to leave to go do something else. And her friend Megan is like kind of pissed off about the whole situation. She basically begs Samantha, like, please do not stay here. Don't do this.
They lied to you.
I
They're
know.
liars.
Okay, I know you're right. But it's $400. This people's first month's rent and then
Maybe this is too good to be true. I don't care about the money. You just need to leave. And of course, we wouldn't have a movie if she left. So Samantha stays in the home, and then the Ullmans leave. Her friend Megan leaves, and then the roller coaster starts slowly making its way up to the top, and we have this act number 2, which is just this slow build of tension as Samantha sits inside of this house. And understandably, she becomes bored and her curiosity wins out. So she kind of goes off and starts prying and investigating the house. And there's a lot of like, it reminds me almost of like Resident Evil, the video game, when you're in the mansion and this house just feels so vast, and it's just kind of like oozing with mystery. Like there's something hidden in every room, and she's kind of going around and looking at stuff. And I will say that the entirety of the home is beautifully lit. Like if you watch, I even had this problem with Weapons, which is a recent horror movie that I love. But whatever these new like 4K, 8K cameras and the digital film, whatever they're doing with these like dark scenes, you just can't see shit. And with this movie, House of the Devil, you just have the opposite problem. Like every shot of this house is so beautifully lit with the shadows and the careful blocking of the characters. And there's always a segment of the shot where you're focusing on something in the background, and you're just the whole time you're waiting for something, waiting to see something. But as I said, this roller coaster just keeps rising up as she explores the home, and her boredom kind of drives her to start prying into, areas and rooms that maybe aren't her business. There's a scene where she goes upstairs and she kind of goes to what she believes to be the mother's bedroom. And she keeps like putting her ear against the door and she doesn't hear anything. Eventually things start happening. She starts hearing noises in the house. There's bump noises coming from upstairs. There's a moment where she is washing her hands in the sink, and then she hears like there's like a rattling coming from the pipes. And little things like that. And then finally, like any horror movie, there's that tipping point where the roller coaster hits its zenith, and then we take off. And that scene in this movie is incredibly jarring and incredibly effective. That sets off the rest of the film, which I don't want to spoil. But it is the quintessential slow burn atmospheric horror movie. I think that, as I said, it nails that 1980s aesthetic. Like this movie feels like you found an old unmarked VHS tape in your basement and you put it in, and this is the movie. It has I think strong performances, as I said, Jocelyn Donahue as the protagonist, very Laurie Strode centric, does a really good job of delivering this grounded performance, which keeps the film feeling very believable, despite as we kind of ratchet up towards the conclusion, things get a little bit more fantastical, if you will. And the ending is incredibly jarring and incredibly unconventional. In terms of a horror movie ending, it kind of subverts your expectations a few times, where you keep thinking you know where it's going, and then something will kind of twist. Just the atmosphere of the house. I think Ty West does a really good job of bringing out tension in everything, like these empty rooms, these long hallways with these like slow snap zooms with the camera. The silence is becomes very frightening as Samantha walks further and further down this conveyor belt towards the horror that will be her night as a babysitter. And that's another thing that I like about it too. It's that it pays homage again to those 80s classics with the babysitter horror movie. But this one, I think, does a really nice job of making that concept feel fresh and unpredictable, and it kind of keeps twisting and turning, keeping you on your toes. The music, I think, is really good. I'm a big soundtrack guy. I think the music of this movie is awesome. There's some of the tracks that play later on in the movie are very like Shining-esque, in my opinion. And there's also a scene where the main character puts on her cassette player, and she puts on headphones, and we get One Thing Leads to Another by, I believe, The Fix plays, and you get this like montage of her kind of like dancing and moving throughout the house. Again, I feel like they intentionally try to show you as much of the house as possible, just to show you how expansive it is, and it's just such a quintessential like scary movie Victorian house. It's really cool. I love I think the way it's lit is beautiful. Lots of really cool shots. There's a scene somewhere around like the end of Act 1 where she's upstairs. This is when she has her Walkman on and she's kind of moving around the house, dancing. And she enters this room where we're kind of viewing her from outside the window, and the camera slowly starts pulling back. And you can see that the wall of this room is just like this, almost like end-to-end windows, this huge wall of windows, and contrasted against the dark forest that surrounds this house, you just have this big, brightly lit like fishbowl with her in it. They kind of keep visually playing into the idea that she is being watched and you're being observed. But this one's good. If you're down with a slow burn, atmospheric movie that is just a well-paced, it's only an hour and a half long, well-paced, slow burn horror movie that has a really good payoff, a really good unpredictable ending, then check out House of the Devil. You're still here watching, I appreciate you, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.